All right, so for our screening, we all watched The Fall Guy in class and we watched Hail Caesar. So this is our podcast. My name's Danny.
My name is Jia Zhuo.
My name's Emily.
My name's Eleanor.
My name is Jaden.
Yeah, so I'm just going to start off giving a quick general synopsis. The Fall Guy, it was released in 2024 by David Leitch, directed by David Leitch. And it's sort of like the ultimate action comedy film. It's loosely based on the 1980s TV series, but I don't know too much about it. Other than they drew a lot of influence from it, but changed some big things as well. And it sort of follows an unsung hero stuntman who is Ryan Gosling working or reuniting almost with his ex-girlfriend through the means of her directorial debut, portrayed by Emily Blunt. And he gets involved in a kind of crazy conspiracy that takes you on a trip you're probably never going to anticipate. It's a big love letter to practical stunts. They broke the Guinness Book of World Records for the number of rolls in a car for I think 8 complete turns. And yeah, it's really authentic in that way. It was a big budget, $125 million, but only yielded 180 in the box office. So not as big a success as they hoped for, and those numbers are all just relative to IMDb. And then Hail Caesar, sort of a similar story in a different tone, but it was released in 2016 by the Coen brothers, and it follows sort of like the day in the life of this Hollywood fixer, Eddie Mannix, for Capitol Pictures in the 1950s-ish. And he just cleans up, solves problems. He's always on the phone, always taking calls for these big stars, these big names in the film industry. And when their big star, Baird Whitlock, portrayed by George Clooney, it's got 1 million stars in it. It's almost overwhelming in the moment. You're like, whoa. He disappears. Eddie ends up going on a bigger chase than he probably ever imagined. And it's Hail Caesar is actually a film in the film that they're making, and it's really pretty a pseudo meta commentary on what things were like, how much control directors had over actors, what they did when they worked, and it's a really interesting film. And that had a budget of $22 million and yielded $63.2 million in the box office. So overall, a pretty successful film by those standards.
Yeah. All right. So for this podcast, we're mainly going to be comparing and contrasting what the film industry was, Hail Caesar, and what it is now with The Fall Guy. So I'm going to be talking about the key differences. If anyone wants to chime in, please do. But first I wanted to talk about the roles, not really like their formal roles, but their informal roles with Eddie, Edward Mannix, and then Colt Seavers, who is the stunt guy or the Fall Guy. They're both actor fixers in a way. Well, Colt Seavers is more like a stunt guy than anything, but he does like babysit. I forgot his co-star, but it's like Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yeah.
Love that guy. But again, you see Colt Seavers running around, going to his mansion, going to his like bars, ladies' houses, hotels, trying to make sure he doesn't get into any trouble. Eddie does the same, but with more people. Like, so like I can't imagine. And he used to do this, like he is a real person, and his story is quite horrifying. I'm actually gonna take a little piece. I don't know if any of you have heard anything about him, but he's like a mob boss of the studio system.
Oh wait, actually, I don't know.
Yeah. So this is from Vice. It's called "The Truth About the Tyrannical Hollywood Fixer Who Inspired Hail Caesar," and this is by Christina Newland. I hope I said that right. So let's see. For the real life Eddie Mannix, who reigned at Metro Goldwyn Mayer, MGM, from 1924 and 1962. This is a bit of like a trigger warning for anything, but he's talked about all these things before. He covered up rape, abortion, and potentially even murder.
Wow.
I forgot someone murdered someone, but it was a guy who murdered someone. Choose the bear. We're all part of the job, while studio co-founder and mogul Louis B. Mayer extolled the virtues of wholesome family entertainment. So their purpose was to keep the studio's image like Rose isn't family friendly. But of course, like as we all know now, like it's an awful business deep down. Like we don't even know the half of it probably. Does anyone want to talk about that point right there?
I mean, it's sort of funny because like the Fall Guy is like a celebration of everything Hollywood in some ways. It's like a big it's like a big I love you to that industry, in the sense that all these, practically filmed stunts, obviously it's highlighting like some problems in the industry, but when you look at like Hail Caesar, it's really like highlighting, if anything, like the artificiality of Hollywood and like how seriously they take themselves in a weird way.
I thought that was so interesting because I ended up reading like a blog post by the blog of Marzable. It's titled, hold on, let me get that title. Impotence and Authenticity and Identity in Hail Caesar. And there was a quote I pulled that said, the film in its own lacks internal character evolution, and I feel like that definitely like goes towards how like it's so inauthentic, and that's so different compared to like what Fall Guy shows, because it just makes you feel like you're kind of like on the same level as what's going on the screen, while Hail Caesar kind of makes you feel like a little inferior because people
you're always
are
a
so
step
mean
down
to each
from
other.
knowing
Yeah.
what's really going on.
Yeah.
It's just like,
I thought like the characters in Hail Caesar was like one dimensional in some type of way.
Yes.
Like they all play like one role. Even I forget Scarlett Johansson's character name, but even she was just like the regular female actress, doing her job. Even he was trying to cover up her child, like how she was going to take care of him. It was like, oh, you can adopt him or something like that. So like they was trying to cover it up so she can keep her, ladylike image, even though she really wasn't anything ladylike in the thing at all. Like she was beyond that. And for even the cowboy star, he was even just the stereotypical, all I'm good at is action movies, being a cowboy. I don't know anything about being this fancy gentleman or whatever. Like even at the fancy movie premiere, he had the date and he was still like acting like a child and everything. So he really wasn't a professional, as you say. Like he had any like famous like actual celebrity training. Like he was just being himself. But even in Fall Guy, we could relate to them on a certain level because they were people just like us. Like we were every day, like this is what we go through, this is our job, this is what we're supposed to do.
I feel like I totally agree with that. I think that Hail Caesar is like certainly satirical and is like kind of, do we think it's like kind of poking fun at movies like Fall Guy? And not maybe like movies like Fall Guy, but maybe like reinterpretations of like
I
the
think
film
maybe
industry
it's
like that.
poking fun at the epics that the early 1950s, like MGM studios are turning out. Like you aren't real. Like people aren't actually
It's
like
not,
that.
yeah, I mean, it's sort of funny too. Like when you hear the
I wrangled for a while, and then they saw I could say a line or two, and I was bad clam or deputy number 2 or guy's buddy for a couple of years, and then someone heard me sing,
and that was like
they made me
his
the guy.
story of how he became a movie star. And I thought this was really interesting. This was a quote directly from Eddie Mannix, and he's saying, you have worth as long as you serve the picture, and don't you ever forget it. And he's saying that directly to like Baird as he finds him again and tells him to go run the scene back in Hail Caesar. Yeah,
Exactly.
and it was
so,
just like so.
intense.
Yeah, it is really. It's just freaky to think about, and it creates like a weird dynamic where I don't know what to think about Eddie Mannix, because he's just a fixer, but I'm like he's dealing with these stars and like really like
Harsh ways.
Yeah,
He like
really,
beat him the
yeah.
fuck, he
Yeah.
beat him up.
Okay, so I also find some different about these two movies. So the first, both two movies all be Hollywood movie, right? But the type is different. I think the Fall Guy is a action movie, and there has so many fights, and the character drive the boat or drive the car, and it focuses on trails and how to main character uses his stuntman skills to solve problems. But Hail Caesar is a darkly humorous comedy, and the Coen brothers pay homage to Hollywood through this film, while also humorously revealing the behind the scenes chaos and the absurdity of filmmaking. Although there is some action in the movie, but it's mainly on stare and dialogue.
Yeah, I definitely think they're both addressing these like larger than life aspects of Hollywood. Like
Totally.
the Fall Guy, like the whole movie is like it feels like the entire city is the set, you know, because there's all these crazy like slightly unrealistic things taking place. But then you also like literally in Hail Caesar, like
It's
the entire
like,
thing is a
the
set. Like
it's like
yeah, it's
crazy.
everything, and you know, it's all interesting. I thought like the kind of like two different portrayals of an industry, but I felt distinctly like the Fall Guy was like a love story to the industry, and Hail Caesar felt really like a critique of how artificial it can be.
Well, it was like critiquing like even like the Catholic Church and like its relationship
Yeah.
to like Hollywood, as well as like capitalism versus like communism. I don't know.
It's just
It's
economics.
just they're so different, but it's so like yet they're so similar. I don't know.
I wonder if that would, like, for Hail Caesar, the reason why communism and like religion was a prominent thing in that movie,
Well,
because
it's
that's how it
different.
was
Yes,
in the 50s.
yes. They're
Like, that
certainly
was like
set in
their
like different
main-
times.
That
And
was their
this-
main issue when making films. So like, oh, like we got to be careful about this and that. But
like,
now it's
people-
like, I
Now
don't
we
know.
gotta
It's,
be
yeah,
careful. Yeah,
you gotta be careful about
wow.
everything.
The context, yeah, I think it's just like such a like tale of time. Like I guess both of them.
Yeah, I mean the scene where they have like Orthodox priest, a Catholic priest,
And
and
they're
a
like running
rabbi.
straight by them.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they're like, does this offend any of you? And they all like are citing things, how they're offended, how they can't do this, and then they come to like basically the agreement that they're just not going to show like the face of God, and they're like,
Exactly.
well, okay, that's fine, and they all just like
Yeah.
overlook it, and it's so artificial, it's so weird.
It's it is really crazy.
So I think that summarizes like the one key, I think I said key differences, but like the one key similarity for this is the artificiality and like the problematic nature of the film industry is prevalent in both. There's another similarity, and I phrase it as imminent death, which is a bit morbid, but it refers to like the industry, because like in Hail Caesar, they're like, the one guy that was trying to recruit Eddie was like, hey, you need to like get out of the film industry. Television's gonna get rid of it. No one wants to come out to see the fancy pictures because they're gonna have it at home. And then you also see this in Fall Guy, at least with like the ratings provided on Canvas, where there's this one article called "As Stay-at-Home Orders Ease, Cinemas Struggle to Stay Afloat," which is by Gene Mattis and Brent Lang, and it's also on Variety. It's renamed though, as "Movie Theaters Struggle to Draw Crowds as Coronavirus Stay-at-Home Orders Ease." And this is from someone who owns a movie theater. She said, the first weekend 34 people came through the doors. Next weekend it dropped to 14. Parker changed the lineup, adding some Christian movies, and it picked back up to 39. Still a fraction of a typical weekend before the pandemic. They're scared, Parker says. So how do we feel? Is that still going on today?
Yeah, I think it's never really gone back to the way it was. I mean, I've definitely gone to see a lot of movies like blockbusters that were just empty
Yeah.
in a weird way. But at the same time, we see a big movement like we're talking about now in like The Perfect Day, a movement towards like analog and a movement back sort of towards like, oh, vinyl, oh, we actually like that, and we like cassettes, and maybe people will go back and say, oh, this is how movies are meant to be seen, because like so many people really are starting to realize like we don't even have the attention span to watch like a movie on our own
Exactly.
time. But in my opinion, like Hail Caesar it's certainly, if nothing else, saying that going forward no matter how technology advances, no matter what cultural shifts take place, there's always going to be a weird struggle for power, and that's always going to happen between directorial dictatorship in a weird way over actors and stuff.
I feel like I really like it. I feel like I resonate with what you said about how like it's like physical form or like I guess like in person, like viewing a film in person is like a form of like, it's not a form of physical media, but like I feel like things like that are definitely starting to like return and become more valued. One of the articles on Canvas called "The Effects of COVID-19 Pandemic on Audience Practices" kind of talks a little bit about that and like how people like it shifts so heavily, and now like I feel like there is like a certain like type of audience that is trying to like shift back to like that physical and more intimate experience, especially like when it comes to the cinema.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So also the humor about two movies is different. Like Fall Guy, the humor is a lot of type, like dialogue, like some action. The male actor wears a suit and give the movement awesome like this. But Caesar's humor is mainly about the dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Ryan Gosling is just funny. He just like makes funny faces.
Like silly.
Like there's no way to not, especially with like Barbie and everything. The way he's really starting to step into the limelight.
And I feel like Hail Caesar just kind of like like the jokes like write themselves. Like it's just like I don't know. You're not laughing because they're being funny. You're laughing because like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I wonder if the way we view each movie, because Fall Guy we viewed as a class, so we built off each other's energy, like when it came to like the comedic timing of everything.
That's so true, like the laughing.
And with Hail Caesar, we were at home, so it's like we laughed we laughed at the scenes ourselves. But if we watched them with other people, will we have the same reaction?
Sometimes you catch yourself like,
Giggling.
wait, was that funny?
Yeah.
Like, wait, am I just not understanding
Like,
this? Or
did
was that
everyone
funny?
not get the joke?
Yeah.
Was I the only one that got the joke?
Yeah.
Wow. That definitely connects to what we were saying about like COVID and like the
Absolutely.
more group experience.
And they're trying to, like,
individual experience.
Save these movies with like algorithm based like epics and blockbusters. Like,
Right.
Like Fall Guy, it might like appeal more. Like we might laugh and be like, why did we laugh? Like you said, because there might be an algorithm to that joke. And like back then, there's also jokes based on that time period that like we might not get because we didn't see the movies. That they might laugh at. Like the one joke with the Hobie movie where the guy falls into the thing and everyone like all fancy dress laughed because like that was the type of comedy back then. But like that's the only thing that was saving them. We have the same like ways to like.
Now we laugh at like people getting like kicked in the nuts.
Yeah.
It's like
I
crazy.
think Fall Guy, they set their jokes up with past scenes, so they build up to the joke or they have a running gag. But with Hail Caesar, the joke was like there in the moment. So it's like if you didn't catch it, then oh well, you didn't catch the joke. It doesn't build up to the joke. It doesn't, have a running gag or anything. But Fall Guy, that's what you were saying about the dialogue, like how Fall Guy was more physical comedy and Hail Caesar was more verbal comedy.
So they certainly are very similar but very different in a number of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they definitely both have things to say about where the industry is headed. But I think hopefully there's some imminent revival, but who knows?
I agree.
They still both hate actors.
Yeah.
They hate actors.
Something that won't change.
I mean, one thing that was different was like gender roles. Like Hail Caesar, it was more male dominant, and of course because of like the 50s, so not many females were like at the top. They were either just actresses or secretary assistants. But in Fall Guy, there was a female director, and like
Producer.
the female was in charge as well. So they had more top, like usually male dominated roles in Fall Guy, which shows the progression we did, like how far we came in the movie industry,
I agree.
rather than Hell Caesar was just like, oh, only men can do these jobs, only men can be directors, owners of companies, like the best actors out here, while females only get like the lower level jobs and not much recognition
Yeah.
as their male counterparts.
Totally agreed.
I didn't even
Alright.
think of that.